Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Smith, and the company I have chosen for my Capstone project is Under Armour. To start off with Under Armour's industry, they are big competitors in the sports apparel industry. Some of the key players include Nike, Adidas, and Puma, with obviously Nike being the biggest in terms of revenue in the market. The sports apparel industry had a $167.7 billion valuation in 2018, and some experts say that there's potential for it to reach about 248 billion in 8 years by 2026. Next is just the PESTLE analysis within the industry. So just some of the political factors include government policies in different countries, as obviously every country has a different government structure, and then labor laws as well. So just Under Armour has a lot of factories overseas, mostly in Asia, just for cheaper labor. They can work longer hours, and the regulations aren't as high as they are here in the United States. So that can vary country by country depending on the government policies and the laws. And then the economic factors include different costs in different places. So that can include labor costs, where you get your raw materials from, where the plants are. It's why a lot of the manufacturing plants choose to go overseas to Asia, maybe even Mexico and South America, just to save expenses to really capitalize on the profit margin there. And then next up is the social factors. And these just include fashion trends and changes of lifestyles. By change of lifestyles, I just mean lately, a lot more people are becoming more health conscious, trying to work out more and eat better food. So just trying to keep up with that. Then technological factors can include different materials. For example, Under Armour uses more of a polyester blend for their shirts rather than just pure cotton, and that just also helps better performance for the shirts and the different apparel there for Under Armour. Then legal factors can include dealing with copyright infringements and lawsuits against them. Recently, Under Armour has a lawsuit against them just because the family didn't realize the shirts weren't fireproof, so they accidentally set it on fire, and the child was badly burned, so they currently are trying to fight off that lawsuit. And then the last one is just environmental factors, so just how green your company is. With millennials rising to the top of industries, everyone's trying to become more green. Just for an example, it actually takes about 1,800 gallons of water to make a pair of jeans, or about 2,200 gallons of water for a pair of shoes, which was really surprising to me. And next up, we just have our biggest competitors, just so you can kind of get a feel for Under Armour's numbers. They had about a $4.5 billion revenue with a gross profit of around $2 billion, and then a net income of about negative $500 million. So if you compare that to Nike, who has $37.4 billion revenue, gross profit of $16.2 billion, and a net income of $2.5 billion. And then Adidas, while they have about $9 billion less of revenue, they're not far behind the gross profit at $14.75 billion, and actually are just right behind Nike with a $2.4 billion net income, which just speaks to how they can keep costs lower to really grab more of that income from their revenue. And then finally, Puma, just slightly above Under Armour in terms of revenue with $4.92 billion. Once again, just slightly ahead in gross profit as well at $2.4 billion. And then about $700 million ahead of them at a $201 million net income, as Under Armour had a negative net income for the fiscal year 2020. Next is just the driving forces of change analysis. In the sports apparel industry, there is a fairly low threat of new entrants just because there's already so much competition, and all these companies are very innovative, so you really have to find a niche market that you can market towards in order to break in. Same thing with bargaining power suppliers. It's relatively a low threat. There's just so many companies out there who sell raw materials. So if they try to increase the price on you, you can easily go to another one, as all the companies have backup suppliers just in case something happens anyways. And with this, how large these companies are, any raw material supplier would love to take your business. Then when it comes to bargaining power of buyers, the threat is moderately high. Buyers can easily boycott brands for whatever reason if they are in the news for really taking advantage of labor laws, stuff like that. And then also price sensitive can drive them away. So Under Armour has slightly higher prices just because they cannot buy as many raw materials in bulk, as they don't produce as many products as Nike or Adidas. So the higher prices can drive potential customers to other brands. And then threat of substitute products or services is also fairly high. Just once again, there's so much competition in the industry with little differences, and customers will look at either where they're emotionally connected to without even realizing it, or the price as well. And that follows into just the rivalry among existing competitors. Once again, there's just so much competition in this industry with all these massive companies. So yeah, there's just huge companies. So customers have a lot of options. So the rivalry is just very high in the industry. The two most crucial forces, in my opinion, for Under Armour is threat of substitute products. Other companies offer less expensive products as they don't have those polyester blends that I was talking about earlier in their shirts and their undergarments, but we'll get more towards that technology in a little bit. And then once again, the bargaining power of buyers, there's just so much competition, and consumers will just build so many emotional connection with other brands, just whatever athletes they look up to, why they're in the news and stuff like that. Now, just to look at the industry mission statements, you can see one main thing in common is just how they all want to be very innovative in order to get ahead of their competition. And then Nike, Adidas, and Puma are talked about being the best brands in the world, while Under Armour is just trying to be very innovative. So that's the one key component that they have in common with one another. It's just how innovative they would like to be, and then just all trying to make whoever wears their clothes better and feel their best at all times. Next up is Under Armour's strategic objectives. They unveiled a 5-year plan in the year 2018. So their revenue target was a low double-digit growth rate percentage return. So they wanted to build upon like 10% at minimum. So by the way the numbers were looking in 2018, they would have to reach about 7.8 billion in the year 2023 for revenue to hit their goal. But in the fiscal year 2020, their revenue was only 4.4 billion. And then next up was the gross margin target. They want to have 48% gross margin. And then the fiscal year, they had 47.88. So they're right there for that target, but that's really the only target where they're close. Next up was the operating margin target. So once again, they want to have a low double-digit operating margin, just kind of like revenue target at minimum 10%. And the fiscal year 2020, they had a 1.25% operating margin. And then one that really surprised me was the earnings per share target. They wanted to grow about 40% in the next 5 years. And since this plan came out, they have just been declining. There is a 9% drop off, a 306% drop off. And then the biggest one was from 2019 to 2020, where they had a 705% drop off. And their last goal was their return on invested capital was to hit 20%. But once again, the fiscal year 2020, they fell very short and only reached a 0.2%. Next is the SWOT analysis. So one of their strengths is they're growing their product lines by expanding into other sports. They are still very innovative in their own ways, trying to improve their cold and warm gear. And then they also have additional sources of revenue other than just apparel. In 2015, they bought MyFitnessPal. So they're kind of competing in Nike in the app space as well. You can just track all your nutrition, all your workouts on there. If you're trying to gain weight, lose weight, once again, just growing into the ever more health conscious market. A couple weaknesses are they're still a new company. They're only founded in 1996. So that means you just have a weaker global presence than other big brands like Nike and Adidas. They recently have had a couple recalls on like jock straps, chin guards, things that consumers are being hurt by, which is kind of tarnishing the brand name. That just kind of ties into the last one of their product quality. It's just been slipping over the last couple of years. But then again, there's opportunities with that as well. They can go more global to compete with Nike and Adidas. And then another big place I think they can improve on is children and women's products, as they fall behind there, even though they have some of the biggest women stars in the world, like Lindsey Vonn, and then Giselle Brady, who's Tom Brady's wife. And then threats, poor recognition, just because they don't have as many celebrity endorsements as, say, Nike and Adidas. So core competence, their technology to keep anybody being physically active, cool or warm with their cool or warm gear technology. So if it's really cold out, their gear is supposed to warm you up, and if it's warm out, it's supposed to cool you down, and it's also proven to be sweat resistant. This is how the company was founded, was to try and keep athletes dry, and this is just through their polyester blend for shirts and undergarments. Their competitive strategy is differentiation, as they bring value to the customer by not being price sensitive, but rather trying to have better technology. They broke into the market by being very innovative, and I think they should try to get back to that. Threat of entry will be reduced, as their business plan is very challenging to match with the customer service, how much money they've invested in that. And the bargaining power of suppliers will go down as they're ordering so many bulk materials. Their growth strategy, when the company was founded, Kevin Plank sent shirts from the contacts from the University of Maryland, football, and the NFL. They love the shirts so much, keeping them comfortable. Even primetime Deion Sanders bought some shirts to spread them around. They also started sponsoring college teams with North Carolina State and Georgia Institute of Technology. And then when Under Armour became public in 2005 and raised $157 million in the IPO, and endorsing some of the top athletes in America and the world, like Steph Curry, Tom Brady, Ken Oon, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and like I said before, athletes like Lindsey Vonn and stuff like that too. So their diversification strategy is a related constraint. This is because all their product lines relate to sports apparel, and there's nothing really outside of that. Their top selling products are their shoes, especially since Steph Curry came in and kind of helped design them to what he likes. And then even though it makes up for less than 70%, which is why it's related constrained. So just my strategic recommendations for Under Armour. The biggest thing is trying to get rid of their $1.3 billion worth of inventory. So they didn't really see the fashion trend coming, which resulted in them not being able to sell their products in Under Armour and Nike and Adidas, really capitalizing on that and making a lot of money from that, increasing their revenue, profits. Meanwhile, Under Armour kind of struggled to sell clothes during that, and now they're stuck with $1.3 billion worth. So either they can put all those really in bulk discounts or just regular discounts to try and get rid of it, or another way to get rid of it is just to kind of recycle a lot of it in order to make more apparel, which hopefully will allow them to be more fashionable, to get them back on track. The second strategic recommendation I have for Under Armour is to run an analysis on what products do best in certain markets so they don't overproduce products. And by that I mean you don't really want to be selling a lot of football and basketball products in Europe, let's say. You want to be selling more soccer, as that's the prominent sport there. Same thing in America. You don't really want to be selling a lot of soccer stuff. It's more basketball, football, stuff like that. And then my third strategic recommendation is to become more fashionable, stay relevant. The brand that sticks out to me for this is Adidas. They really made themselves fashionable to stay relevant. They hired Kanye West to come in and do a line with them. And that's one of the best selling product lines in the world in the sports apparel industry right now. Almost everyone has a piece of clothing from that product line. My last one is maybe just to test out a blue ocean strategy instead of differentiation, just because their product quality has begun to slip, and that will take a lot to get back on top of. So if you want to still have those polyester blends, those better, higher materials to charge more money, you can do that. But then just produce as many as you need, and then everything else you can try and produce the more cotton shirts like Nike and Adidas are releasing to have a less expensive shirt to better compete with Nike and Adidas. And just going off of that, having more of a children product line and women's as well can really help Under Armour stay relevant in the sports apparel industry. And then just all my references. Thank you very much for listening.